Hello and welcome to Let Me Be Your Game Guide, a podcast that spends each episode delving into a mystical new video game, exploring its charms and challenges, and helping you decide if it should be next on your list. I'm your host, Emma. Join me for this week's discussion episode as we escape reality and enter the metaphysical. For the remainder of this episode, let me be your game guide. Man, another weird, lonely intro. Welcome back to the podcast, or welcome to the podcast, if this is your first time listening. My name's Emma, and usually I am joined with my partners in crime, Rylan and Sean, but unfortunately they could not make the recording for this episode. So it's just me. You're stuck with just me. And I forgot to mention it during last week's episode, but Rylan so kindly recorded some reactions that maybe I will sprinkle in through this episode if I can hack it. But I'm gonna be honest, I'm actually kind of overwhelmed by doing this by myself. I rely heavily on the banter and the humor and the thoughts and ideas of Rylan and Sean. I think our back and forth is super fun, and sometimes we pick up on different things. So I've done my best to take really diligent notes, and we are talking about Planet of Lana today. If you missed last week's episode, I went through my critical rating. It's a little bit more serious. There's less spoilers. This is going to be a spoiler-filled episode. I'm going to go just chapter by chapter talking about the plot and how it progressed and kind of what happened and how it affected me. Because I really liked this game. Just as a reminder, I gave the game a 4.5, and then I did guess what I thought Rylan and Sean would give it. And Rylan and Sean, if you're listening and you have not played/rated the game yet and you still plan on doing that, don't listen to my guesses, but I'm going to give my guesses right now. I guess that Rylan is going to give this a 3.8 and Sean is going to give this a 3.6. Very educated guess. I really crunched the numbers on those, but so yeah, before I get too into things, let me just plug the podcast real quick. Before we get into the episode, don't forget to give the podcast a follow, rate it, review it, however you want to show us love. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/letmebeyourgg, where you can view episodes early as they post sometime on Sunday, a couple of days before the episode posts everywhere else. You can also find us on most socials as Let Me Be Your GG with no spaces. That's LetmeBeyourGG, no spaces. And we are on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Check out our YouTube. They have all of our old streams. Our podcast is on there. And if you check out our Twitch, every other Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we do a live game trailer reaction for one of the upcoming games that we'll be playing. This is fun to give you kind of a peek into the future so you know what's coming up. And we're usually 2 or 3 games ahead of what's releasing. So really gives you some time if you want to play the game before the episode's release. And then Rylan and I play whatever we feel like playing. We will stream on the weekends at 8 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. Rylan's typically on Saturday. I'm typically on Sunday. I don't know what we'll be playing by the time this releases, but check us out. It's a good time. It's usually pretty chill. It's a morning stream, so just chill out with your breakfast and your coffee. Come say hi. You can also find us on TikTok as Let Me Be Your Game Guide with no spaces. And Rylan makes those TikToks. They're great. I love them. Go check it out. There's a ton if you haven't seen them already. And you can email us at letmebeyourgg@gmail.com. This is the best way to send in game requests. Just make sure you include game request in the subject line so it's easy for us to find. Oh, my goodness. What I found about recording episodes by myself is that I run out of breath super easily. And I made myself a coffee before I came to record and then realized that I wouldn't be able to drink it because all of my sip time is when Sean or Rylan's talking and they're not here. So I wouldn't have any time to take a drink. So, yeah, I just miss them dearly. But Rylan will be back for our next game, and Sean hopefully will be back for the game after that. And hopefully we'll get them, they'll still play this game, and then we can do our bonus extra life, and they can talk about their thoughts and feelings just briefly in that bonus episode. So, but let's move into the game. If you want to know more details on how the game works and, kind of some of the, what it's about, I described that in the rating episode. But for this episode, I'm just going to dive right in. So we're going to start at the intro of this game, which I wouldn't shut up about it in last week's episode, but the score for this game is fantastic. I straight up felt like I was watching a movie, even though I was playing the game. It gave Star Wars vibes for some reason. Maybe it's because it's on a planet that is foreign to me, but it was so good. So good. So if you played this game and you agree, just let me know. If you don't agree, I actually don't want to know because you're dead to me. But I'm just kidding. This was just an amazing score. It's just so cinematic. It opens up. You are playing Lana, and Lana is in her village. So you begin in a water village, your village, with wooden docks and bridges, creating a community on stilts over water. You start by chasing your friend Elo, playing a sort of Marco Polo game with your names. You run until you reach the shores, and you find Elo sitting in front of 2 gravestones. When you catch up, they stand and give you a big hug. As you follow them through the woods, further inland, you begin to see things falling from the sky. What originally looked like meteors turn out to be alien-like spaceships. These robot spaceships capture Elo, and you're left chasing the machine, trying to catch up and rescue your friend. The rest of this section follows Lana racing through the woods in pursuit of Elo, and a surprise friend who helps you along the way. So yes, this is where you first get that beautiful 3-dimensional view, especially in this kind of water, beach village, because you don't have just the dock on stilts that you're running across. There's multiple levels. There's views that are deeper in the background that just add so much depth, and I thought it was beautiful just right off the bat. Music's amazing, graphics are amazing, and you're just playing with your friend around town. You're running, you're chasing each other, you're jumping into the water. You're introduced to the sneaking aspect of the game a little bit as you sneak behind one of the villagers who's cooking, and eventually, yes, you do end up running. And in the background I was like, oh wow, space is wild. There are so many comets and meteors falling from the sky, and then nope, they're robots, and they capture Elo. And this scene was actually a little horrifying, I would say. It was probably the scariest, especially if you're listening with headphones, because as you chase these ships back through your village, you see all of them capturing the people in your village, and the screams are terrifying. It's extremely realistic. You have these blood-curdling screams. People are crying and yelling. You can hear children screaming, babies crying. I mean, it's pretty wild, and it's a lot darker than it was before. You don't have this bright, vibrant, colorful world. It's very gray, very dark and shadowy. So you really get a quick mood shift, and the music is there to help move that emotion along as well. You get some very tense music. But as you exit your village, you end up kind of collapsing out of exhaustion, and you have this dream where you're chasing your friend. It's the same scene as you saw before, but then when you wake up, it's like everyone's kind of vacated the area, but you need to continue on. So you kind of enter into the forest, and this is where you meet Mui. And Mui is like I don't know how to describe Mui other than like a cute little cat, I would say, but it's more of like a blob. Mui has they're black, they have this curly tail, little cat-like ears, and when you pet Mui, they purr. And so I would compare Mui to a cat, although when you look at the creature, it's not what you would expect a cat to look like. So a very round, blobby cat. But you're introduced to a lot of the puzzle mechanics and kind of how to work together with Mui. Mui is captured by one of the robot traps, and so after you rescue them, they become a companion of yours, and they'll help you with, like pushing ropes down so you can climb, or hitting switches, and you guys work together. Mui can jump a lot higher than you can, so there are points where you need to climb a rope and then Mui just jumps on after you. But very cute, adorable little sounds. And then I think I died a few times in this area just from fall damage, because there is a very fine line between being able to jump from a high cliff and dying from jumping from a high cliff. So Mui makes a very sad noise anytime you die, and it's kind of depressing. So once you reach the end of this section, you look out far into the horizon. You've kind of broken out of the forest and into a cliff that's overlooking. And out in the distance, you can see a giant machine. And it kind of mimics the smaller versions of the machines that you've been avoiding. And it seems to call out this song. And it's associated with colors too, like the little circle on the big robot blinks with different colors for different notes. And so that's our first experience we get with this like musical tune. And then you fall down into the caves. There's just a little piece of wood that was not strong enough to hold your weight, so you go sliding down into the caves, which technically we've gone through a few chapters, but I split this more into areas. So now we'll just move into the more cave area. After crashing through some deteriorated boards, you find Lana and Mui down in the depths of a deep cave. You encounter some cave paintings, light-sensitive slugs, and a mysterious musical puzzle. So this area is quite dark, and a lot of the puzzle solving plays on more light-related aspects. There isn't a lot of new stuff that happens in these caves, other than some cave paintings that you encounter as you're entering the area with the big musical puzzle. So these cave paintings maybe show a prophecy, but you see this symbol that is actually repeated a couple times. It kind of has like a sharp point at the top, and then, it kind of goes down, and it's like circular on the bottom. It almost looks like, like the male symbol with the like circle and the arrow, but it's pointing straight up, and there's some other stuff in between the arrow and the circle. But you see that a few times. It kind of appears as though there's like an astronaut, and then next to it is a person, and then another person. So I don't know if it's like an astronaut landed on this planet and started exploring. I really didn't know at this point, but you get these cave paintings. And in a couple of these cave paintings, it's actually has some aspects you need for the puzzle in the next room. It wasn't too difficult once I figured out what I was looking for, but there are 4 different kind of like bells or pipes, and you move the levers to a certain spot to make a certain note. And this is the first time that we hear what I would call like the good tune. The tune that the giant robot ship made. I call it the bad tune, because later in the game you play this quote unquote good tune, and you're able to turn the robots to be a friend rather than a foe. So, and that is also associated with colors later on, but this is the first time you hear it. I'll play it right here just so you can hear what it sounds like. And yeah, so I would sing it for you, but I can't even remember what the exact tune was. So yeah, so nice little recording there for you to listen to. But yeah, after you solve this music puzzle, it's kind of fun after you set all of the notes up right. You jump and grab onto this rope almost like you're pulling a large bell. And then it plays the song, opens the doors so you can enter further into the cave. And here you find the amulet. It's not really explained what this amulet is or how you're supposed to use it, but intuitively you find that you can use this amulet through Mui, and Mui now has the ability to take control of the creatures, the natural creatures in this area, not the robots, but we've kind of run into this big boar-like animal. You see a lot of slug-like creatures in this area, spidery creatures. And now that you have the amulet, you can, I think it's, for me, it was hold Y when Mui's in the right spot, and Mui can kind of use mind control, not in a malicious way, but just to keep the animal calm and from attacking you, and kind of manipulate them to move in certain directions to help you out. Again, more puzzle solving. So you snag that amulet, and then right as you get out of the cave, there was this one puzzle with, this is kind of the first big timing puzzle that I ran into where, the robots are moving back and forth. You're trying to avoid the robots seeing you, but you also need to use Mui to distract the robots so they run in one direction and you can run in the other direction. It was just very stressful. And I would say, we're not even halfway through the game, but we're reaching a peak of new puzzling and sneaking aspects. So I kind of mentioned this in the last episode, but I think the one thing this game did lack was variety. I wish that there would have been either more challenging things or, I don't know, just maybe some more variety in the types of puzzles and the puzzle solving aspects. We saw a lot of this in like Arranger and Paper Trail, where as you proceed, even moving into the very end of the game, you're still getting new aspects of puzzle solving, and you kind of lost that here. So, but once you are finished in this cave, we move on to what I called the swamp/ruins. It's kind of the same area, but two different environments. So you start off in a swampy environment, and then you move on into this like abandoned ship / maybe civilization, I'm not sure. But after exiting the cave, Lana and Mui find themselves traveling through a sort of swampy forest. Here we discover that Mui is afraid of water, introducing a more complicated travel route. But more interesting is the ruins you stumble upon after traversing through the swamp. So right off the bat, Mui's not going in the water. So this does add a little bit of an aspect of, okay, how am I going to get Mui to where I need to go? Because I can just swim across the water, but Mui's not gonna do that. So this is where the amulet comes into play, where there are some little slugs that Mui can manipulate to raise and lower the water level, because they either drink up the water or, spit it back out, I guess. I don't know. It makes it sound gross, but... And so a lot of these puzzles, not only are you trying to figure out how you will get through, but you're also trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to get this log back over to get Mui through? And this is where I could see Rylan and Sean becoming a little frustrated, because I know especially Rylan complained about this in Figment, of being like, oh, okay, I know I need to go from point A to point B, but I also have to do all this kind of like filler side work to get me completely over there. And this felt a little bit like that. Not as much, because you have this you're sneaking around, but after a while it got a little annoying to solve a puzzle for yourself and then have to undo that puzzle just to bring a log back and float Mui over the water. But otherwise, I didn't really have a problem with it. Again, I think this was just an attempt to add more content and kind of variety into the puzzling, which it worked, but I think that for some people it might seem a little tedious. But this area is, while swampy, very beautiful because you actually get like a cut through of the water. So you can see the water below you. You have fish swimming underneath. And when you jump into the water and you're submerged, you can actually see yourself jumping down. And that's something I actually really appreciated about this game is when you jump, Lana's arms like flail around and sometimes you land really hard, sometimes you roll, but the physics of this game seemed fairly accurate and it was just interesting to watch. And then yes, jumping in the water, you kind of dive down. Her limbs would kind of flail and she'd float back up, but I liked that you were able to actually see down into the water. This is the first time that you can see what's underneath the surface, which was very cool. And most of the puzzles in this area, until you reach the ruins, most of the swampy puzzles are revolving around raising and lowering the water level. So nothing much to explain there, but when you do get into the ruins, this is where we get a little bit of a lore dump. You start seeing that same kind of pointed symbol that I was talking about earlier. And you actually, it seems this is where Mui starts running ahead of you. Like they're excited. They're excited to be at this like abandoned ship, these ruins. And you enter into the ship and you get to a room where you push a button and it creates this like galaxy around you. Like this galaxy is being projected and you can see what to me looked like an image of Earth. And then on the other side of the galaxy was a different planet. And you see that symbol I've been talking about. So now we know that this symbol is representing a spaceship. And that spaceship is leaving Earth and heading towards the other planet. So I took this as maybe the original human settlers of this planet actually came from Earth. Whether they were just exploring or Earth was not habitable anymore, who knows? We didn't really get any more details than that. And maybe if I would have finished the extras, because as you collect, you can find shrines throughout this game. And as you find shrines, it kind of pieces together this little, either it's like a map or a picture. And the more pieces you get, the more information you get. And so maybe there would be some more lore if I went back and finished that. And somewhere in this ship, you pass by these 4 portraits, and I'm really curious to see if we learn more about these people in the second Planet of Lana, or maybe they won't go back in time. Maybe we're just going to move forward and not really completely understand the past of this planet. But 3 of the portraits are humans, and I took it as like maybe these were the captains of the ship. They're wearing a uniform that has that symbol on it, on like a patch on the chest. But then the last image is a robot. And so again, I'm wondering, did this robot I don't know, did they go bad and maybe they're the reason for these robots coming back and taking over this planet? Who knows? But at one point or another, there were these 3 people either running or this ship one at a time or together. But again, this is more lore that I want to know more about. So you do pass those when you're going through the ship. And then you do reach this room that has a saucer. Or a saucer type thing. And you use your amulet to power it up enough and it reveals the bracelet. Again, it's not really explained how this bracelet works, but I think what the bracelet does is help you control the mechanical parts of this area. The machines, the mechanics, kind of the electrical stuff. So once you have this bracelet, you can use the panels and the switches moving forward, or at least that's what I assume. And then we kind of move into the actual ship, or what I thought was a ship. As Lana and Mui go deeper into the depths of the ship, they work together to manipulate the machinery and carve a path through. As they exit the ship together, they board a small sailboat and float across a deep body of water. So there are more puzzles in this area, mainly surrounding power and timing. So you're turning the power on and off, you're having to time things, whether it be avoiding a robot or, like jumping on a platform that's slowly sinking, all sorts of stuff. You're moving Mui around on platforms so they can, like push a rope or like a bite a little rope so the bridge falls down. All sorts of stuff. Just kind of your normal puzzling that you've been doing throughout. But this is where you start to notice, I assume you're using the bracelet to be able to use the mechanism. You push a button and it will play the good tune. And when the good tune plays, it takes over the robot in that area, will repeat that tune back, and then all of a sudden you have control of this robot. It's no longer hostile, it's not trying to attack you. You can control it and use it how you wish when you are at that panel. And so this is our first sign that like, oh, okay, so there is a way to turn these robots into being good, and maybe it has to do with this this music or this short little tune. And the tune is reminiscent of the main theme of the song. And it's beautiful. I'll never shut up about how beautiful it is. But once you exit this area, like I said, you board this little, I say sailboat, but it is just like a square raft with a sail on it. And Mui reluctantly jumps on with you. And this is just one of those scenes where you're just experiencing the world and moving through it. And you're not really doing much. You're just watching. And like I said, you can see the water underneath. There's all these fish that are swimming underneath you. And there's actually this like huge fish, which for a second I was like, oh, geez, is this going to be like a problem? But no, it's just like either a giant whale or a big fish. But I mean, it's huge, but it doesn't attack your boat. It just kind of keeps swimming underneath you. And so it was just a really fun section to experience and just kind of take a break from being stressed out, even though I was stressed out a little bit when I saw that fish. But it was fine and nothing went wrong, which was wonderful. And then we reach the section that I call the beach. After making it through the abandoned ship, Lana and Mui reach a beach similar to your village. There are bridges and platforms set on stilts over the water. You see the alien ships again, capturing people and taking them away. Lana and Mui press on through the beach, chasing the flying kidnappers. So we get back. This is more of a very much more beachy, I would say, than our village that we came from, but it's a similar scene. You get the screaming and the crying, the wailing. I mean, it's very scary, and you have these ships that are capturing the people and flying away with them. We're yelling Elo's name. We're running through. But before we reach that village, there's actually these like huge skeletons on the shore. I would assume that they're maybe from that same type of whale fish that we saw in the water on our way here. But this was just a fun change in scenery. You're still kind of on a beach, but there are these bones and maybe fossils, and it's just kind of a slightly different world than where you came from, even though it looks very similar. And in this section, most of the puzzles heavily rely on taking control of the robots. So you're getting to really work that mechanic of getting yourself to a panel where you can then take control of the robot. Mui has the ability to jump on these robots, or some of them, while you fly them around. There is a scene as you're chasing the robots that there are these larger robot machines kind of stomping through the sand, and this gave Star Wars again to me. Just because you have these giant machines kind of stomping through the sand and you're avoiding their steps, but just another cool scene to experience. And then As you exit the beach, this is like the very last thing you do here, you encounter a giant, like huge spider slug thing. It's disgusting. It has so many eyes, these big spider legs, but this like big sluggish body. And it becomes very apparent that you need to lure this out of its cave so you can run across it. And this one I struggled with for a second because it was kind of hard to figure out what to do. But Mui won't go anywhere near it because there's water in between where Mui is and where the cave is. And initially you don't even notice that it's there. So I'm just minding my own business, running across to see what's next. And then these like 16 to 20 eyes open and I'm like, oh shit. And I turn around. You turn around, you run away. It turns out that you need to call Mui to get Mui to start following you as you climb up. And then when you drop yourself down off the cliff, it will lure the monster back. And then you have the opportunity to use Mui to control this giant beast. We get a little bit of change in the mechanics here where a button will flash on the screen and you have to button smash like Y and then X and then B because obviously this is a large creature. So they're implying that a little bit more work goes into it for Mui to take control, but eventually Mui does take control of this creature. We're able to cross over its body to get to the other side, and then it is gently released from Mui's control and we move forward. And once you exit this area, we get another scene that it's just, this is you experiencing the world. Mui's suddenly excited and running much faster than you, and you're chasing after Mui through this desert land, and you watch as the sun rises in the background, and the music is beautiful. And it's just a lovely scene to watch. There's no puzzles, there's no combat, there's no sneaking. You're just running through and experiencing the cinematic music and atmosphere of this scene. And I loved it. I don't know how much Rylan or Sean would enjoy it, but hopefully we get to hear later how they felt. But once you catch up with Mui, this leads us into our next section, which is really like the second to last section in this game. And this would be the desert. Lana and Mui face their toughest stealth missions yet as they take turns distracting the hostile robots in order to get through. Unfortunately, in an attempt to escape through the tunnel, Mui and Lana are separated after the tunnel caves in, leaving Lana to trudge on in search of Mui and Elo. Defeated and exhausted, Lana passes out in the middle of a sandstorm. Luckily, a stranger saves her life and helps her along her journey to rescue her friends. So this was, and I should have seen this coming. They did it to us in Neva, and of course they're like, oh, here, get attached to this cute creature, and we'll just at one point take them away from you. And that's exactly what happens. So a lot of these puzzles, this is, I would say, the most difficult part in the game, which I enjoyed. I wish a little bit more of them would have been difficult like this. The puzzles are heavily reliant on timing, distraction, purposefully triggering the robots in one direction so you can run in the other, and vice versa with Mui. But even though it's rewarding to feel like, yes, I finally got through, immediately after that is when the cave-in happens, and Mui is left on one side, you're left on the other. Mui is with the robots, so you assume possibly something terrible is going to happen, but there's no choice, you have to move forward. And Lana is left trudging through this terrible sandstorm once she exits the cave. And yes, passes out, but is awoken in this like oasis. Obviously someone lives here, but there is a little bit of greenery. And when you walk through the area, you encounter a man, and this is Rakwen. It's an old man. Again, we get a little bit of a lore dump. You're looking at the images that he has posted up on the wall. There's pictures of the same type of creatures as Mui, with these people, these humans. And you kind of get the idea that maybe Rockwen knows more history. And again, another chance that I wish I would have gotten more information. But here you see that he's written down the bad tune and the good tune. And there's just another little mini puzzle that you consult these notes and you set this machine that he's created to play the good tune, and that gives you control of this robot camel-like creature. And Rockwen lets you use this creature. And if you watched the trailer with us, this next scene is the scene from the trailer where you are racing through the desert on the back of this robot, and you are trying to evade all of the nasty little hostile robots that are attacking you. This is another time that we get that mechanic of pressing the correct buttons at the correct time, button smashing essentially sometimes. And I just wish that this kind of stuff either happened more often or lasted longer, because this scene was super fun and it felt really high stakes to me because I didn't want to make a mistake. And you want to get all the way through. But it ended up feeling a little short. And so I wish we would have gotten more of this. It was very simple. It wasn't like crazy difficult or anything like that. And maybe if it was more difficult, I would have been happy with the length. But because it was so simple and easy, it just felt really short. So that was a little disappointing, but again, you get this very cool new type of music. The style of the score has changed a bit. It's definitely more stressful sounding as you're evading all of these robots, but you do make it through. Unfortunately, the little robot you're riding does not, and you have to abandon the robot. It kind of burns up and collapses, but you were able to get through the most dangerous part of the desert and avoid all of these robots. And this chase scene leads you into a little area where you can stow away. There's a spot where little mini spaceships are landing, and then they're taking back off again. So Lana stows away in one of these ships, and this flies us to our final area, the spaceship. The mothership is really what I should have called it. Lana stows away on one of the enemy spaceships and finds herself inside the mothership. After one last stealth mission, Lana saves Mui, and the pair work together to take one last stand against the alien robots. So once you reach the mothership, you kind of get to this unnerving area where you see all of the previous creatures that you've encountered, the animals that, while maybe hostile towards you, are meant to be on this planet. They're all in these same little clear box traps that you've experienced previously, and they're getting ground into this goop. And then one of the boxes, you see it's Mui, and there's a little bit of panic, but when Mui goes into the area that's going to grind it up, it turns red and spits that box somewhere else. So obviously whatever Mui is, it's not being ground up into goop, which I think they're using to feed the people that they've captured, which is kind of gross. But then you're able to follow Mui's box and take control of some robots and solve this kind of larger puzzle in order to free Mui, and then you guys are reunited. You finally have your companion back again, and you can continue on through the mothership to find Elo. Lots more robot control, timing, stealth puzzles to get through. You end up passing this area where the robots have this big blow dryer where they're holding babies in front of the blow dryer. And then next to it is this pool with a bunch of other little babies in it. It's very creepy. They've taken, there's got to be 30 little tiny babies just crawling around, and they're caring for them. It's very weird. I don't know what the intentions of these robots were. And then right past this area is, it's just this giant room of pods, stacked one on top of another. It's all white, and you can see each person gets their own little pod, and you're yelling for Elo. And finally, for the first time since the beginning of this game, you hear someone yell back Lana. And so you go back into this Marco Polo type game where you're yelling Elo, Elo's yelling Lana, and you find them finally in this little pod, but you're immediately sent into a chase scene because the robots have found you. Again, this was a very fun chase scene. I wish it would have been longer. You're sliding down slopes, you're crawling under pipes, you're just running through machinery trying to escape, and then eventually you do run through a door that's slowly closing. But again, I wish it was longer or more difficult, but I think at this point I was just a little tired of the lack of variety, and so this was just a refreshing mechanic, and when it's short, it's just sad. But this last little area, this door that you've entered in, it seems to be the core of the mothership. There's this giant shining light. You work together with Mui to solve this puzzle to then raise this other globe into the middle of the room. And you time it out right so you don't get blown up, but you end up taking that globe and using it to combat this giant evil shining light in the core of the mothership. And what ends up happening, and this is when I cried, Mui takes the orb and also uses it, and it's almost like Mui absorbs this entire orb that's running the mothership. It ends up being absorbed into Mui. All of the robots, you kind of flash to these robots across the land, across the planet, and they all power down. And then it appears as though Mui is dead. And then I was crying because the scene was just devastating. Your character, you can hear it in her voice, like how devastated she is that Mui's not responding. And then she starts singing the good tune. And now that I'm in this situation, I can actually remember the tune. And it's not perfect. It's like sung in this kind of shaking voice, but it's, I'm not going to sing it, but I'll put a little clip of it here. And Mui ends up coming back to life. And when Mui comes back to life, all of the robots also come back to life, but they come back as friendly, non-hostile robots. So Mui and Lana have saved the day. You flash back, I guess forward in time after everyone's been rescued. You're back in your original village. And you kind of repeat the scene from the very beginning. You run with Mui through the village, off to the beach, through the forest, and to the little cliffside where Elo was originally captured, and you find Elo sitting there, and you sit next to her, and you and Mui snuggle up next to each other, and then the credits roll, as the three of you look off into the distance and a beautiful credit song begins. And that's it. That is the end of Planet of Lana. I cannot wait for the second one to come out. We're definitely going to be playing it and talking about it on the podcast. Hopefully Rylan and Sean enjoyed this as much as I did, because if neither one of them wants to choose it, I'll choose it when it comes out. So really looking forward to it. This game was just so beautiful. The score was amazing. The graphics were amazing. The plot, the storyline, very musically driven, but it's pretty rare that I cry while playing video games. And which is weird because I'm actually like a pretty big crier. But I will say that the music in this game made it possible for me to emotionally connect to the characters and the storyline in such a special way. So I hope you guys have a chance to play this game if you haven't already. Obviously, you just got a lot of spoilers if you hadn't played it yet, but I would say even after listening to this episode, the game would still be super fun to play and experience on your own. So this concludes the discussion episode for Planet of Lana. Please join us next week for the rating episode of Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip. This is Rylan's pick, and Rylan will be back for this game. I don't think we'll have Sean back quite yet. Hopefully we'll have him back for the next game. But Rylan and I will be talking about Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip. I swear he picked that game just so I had to say it over and over again and not mess it up. But it will be followed by the discussion episode the week after. Please go and give the podcast a follow, rate it, review it, however you want to show us love. You can email us with any comments, questions, or constructive criticism at letmebeyourgg@gmail.com. You can also send us game requests if there's something you'd like us to review. Just make sure you include game request in the subject line so it's easy for us to find. You can find us on most socials as Let Me Be Your GG. That's on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and that is spelled LetMeBeyourGG with no spaces. You can find us on TikTok as Let Me Be Your Game Guide with no spaces, and our Patreon can be found at patreon.com/letmebeyourgg. Thank you for listening. We can't wait to see you next week, and thank you so much for letting me be your game guide. GG, y'all.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Bite me. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Inconceivable. Ba-ba-ba-ba-borky.